Hi guys, it's me, Shazza HD, and welcome to the penultimate race weekend of 2025, where we could very well crown a brand new Drivers' World Champion this weekend in Qatar. Of course, we've already had a sprint race which took place about 4.5 hours ago. It wasn't really Well, it wasn't a race, really. It was a procession. It was something you would see in Monaco. It was absolutely terrible. But an important result came of it, and it wasn't as straightforward as maybe people would have expected coming into the weekend. We'll get into what the results of that sprint was in a moment, and we will go through the championship standings just to look at how it is now looking going into this qualifying session, and of course going into the race tomorrow. Just want to say quickly, apologies about the stream starting 15 minutes late. I've had a bit of a manic day at home, and yeah, it was delayed by an hour or so in getting this stream ready. So yeah, apologies about that, but thankfully we've still got quite a bit of time until qualifying is underway in Lusail, Qatar. But yeah, hope you guys are well. Of course, we had the last Grand Prix in Las Vegas, and thankfully for us Europeans, and I'd say a lot of North Americans as well, this timing of this session is, or these sessions this weekend, a lot better than what we had a week ago. And whether this Grand Prix weekend is going to provide the excitement that we are hoping for, we'll have to say the race, or the sprint race, did not fill me really with any hope, given how much of a procession it was. But looking at the running so far, it is pretty competitive, the field. We've got 2 or 3 teams fighting in the top, so, 2 or 3 positions. And then the midfield is very competitive. So it's, a close, competitive, exciting field, but whether tomorrow's race will deliver some exciting racing along with it, again, we don't quite know. We'll have to see when we get to the race tomorrow. But tonight is all about qualifying, which could very well be the highlight of the weekend. Qualifying here in the past has been very exciting. Remember, Verstappen and Russell were so close to each other last year in qualifying, and of course, you had the controversy as well. So yeah, who knows what could happen this evening in Qatar. Very much looking forward to it. But in this qualifying watch-along, firstly, we'll have the build-up. Obviously, we'll go through the usual stuff, which is the running we've had so far, looking at, sprint qualifying and looking at the data from that session. And then based off of what we've had running wise so far this weekend, obviously I'll give my own predictions. Like I said, in a moment we'll go through what happened in the sprint race and go through what the championship standings are now looking like. Most importantly though, I want to hear from you guys in the live chat. What do you think is going to happen this evening in Qatar? Who do you think takes pole position, and do you think Lando Norris will win the championship this weekend? He can win the championship this weekend, but with how his weekend has started, he's going to have to really turn around his form if he wants to get it done on Sunday. So yeah, let me know. Do you think he will win the championship this weekend, or will it go down? And it's looking pretty likely at this point. Will it go down next weekend to the final race in Abu Dhabi? Let me know in the live chat, and we'll see what you guys have to say. But yeah, that's what we're going to do for this build up to qualifying. Hope you guys are well, no matter what time zone you're in, part of the world you're from. Hope everything's going as well as possible, and I hope you can join me tonight in watching along and enjoying qualifying in Qatar. One final thing before we get into what happened in the sprint. There is a poll running, of course, at the top of the live chat, where I've asked you guys who will take pole position tonight in Qatar. And the options are Max Verstappen, Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, and George Russell. Those are, I think, quite easily the 4 most likely drivers to be on pole. So out of those 4 drivers, who do you think takes pole position? That poll will keep running until the start Q3, which is in, 2 hours from now. So you've got a couple hours to decide who you think will take pole for the Qatar Grand Prix. And we'll see who you guys vote for. But yeah, let's start with what happened in the sprint. So I'll just quickly read out the results of the sprint race. Let me just quickly get up the official results. And winning the sprint from pole, very comfortable win, Oscar Piastri. Finally returning to form and getting what could be a crucial sprint win. Because again, you never know what could happen to Lando Norris in these final couple races. We've seen crazy things in the final couple races of a season to turn around a championship deficit. So, yeah, a vital win there for Piastri. George Russell then finishing in second. Lando Norris third. Max Verstappen fourth. Verstappen's poor sprint qualifying is why he only ended up in fourth. I think if it wasn't for his, breaking his floor in sprint qualifying 3, I think Max, very well could have finished in the top 2 today and taken, couple points away probably from Lando Norris, but he loses a point to Norris and loses 3 points to Piastri. 5th, Yuki Tsunoda, probably the best race he's had all season. Antonelli in 6th, Alonso 7th, and Carlos Sainz finishing in 8th place. And yes, you are right. No Ferraris finishing in the points. The highest placed Ferrari was Charles Leclerc in 13th. And Leclerc was 8 seconds away from Sainz, who claimed the last point in the sprint. Lewis Hamilton finished in 17th and ended up 46 seconds, Hamilton, away from winner Piastri. Leclerc was 35 seconds away from Piastri. So Ferrari are, in race conditions, Ferrari are easily a second off the pace of the front runners. Ferrari are in big trouble this weekend. At this point, they're going to finish 4th in the championship because their car is just absolutely rubbish. But they could have a seriously bad result this weekend, which really embarrasses the team. So, yeah, if you're a Ferrari fan, hide behind a pillow, hide behind the couch, hide behind something, because it's going to be a horror show weekend. But that is the results of the sprint. So let's see now how that affects the championship standing. So Lando Norris is still in the lead, but the lead has been cut down by 2 points. So Lando Norris now is only 22 points clear of Oscar Piastri. Verstappen in third, 25 points behind Norris. So officially, both Piastri and Verstappen still, have got a chance. But Lando, the sprint, I don't think went as bad for Lando as it could have. I think if Max was right up there with Piastri as well ahead of Norris, then it could have been quite a bad sprint for Norris. But with Max at least finishing behind, that is, a positive for Verstappen. A positive for Norris in his fight with Max Verstappen. And then the rest of the championship, George Russell 4th. Still amazing to me that Russell is within 100 points of the lead. This shows you how great Russell has been this season. Leclerc 5th, Hamilton 6th, Antonelli 7th. Antonelli, I think, is pretty likely going to overtake Hamilton in the championship before the end of the season. Albon 8th, Isaac Hadjar 9th, and Nico Hülkenberg in 10th. Of course, Albon, Hadjar, Hülkenberg did not score any points. Carlos Sainz did score a point in the sprint, and Sainz is now level on points with Hülkenberg, so it is, I think, decently likely that Carlos Sainz will enter the top 10 of the championship at the end of this weekend, unless something seriously goes wrong. On the constructors' side, McLaren are obviously the champions. Mercedes in third, just over 40 points clear of Red Bull. Mercedes are going to finish in second. That I think I'm pretty confident that they've got the job done there. Red Bull on 400 points in third, 22 points clear of Ferrari. It's not officially done, the battle for third, but I think by the end of this weekend, I don't see Ferrari having a chance. And I think it could even officially be too far out of reach for the Ferrari team by the end of this weekend, because Ferrari are not going to score that many points whatsoever. They've got a terrible car around this track. Williams fifth. Williams, I think at this point we can say, yeah, fifth place is secured. Congratulations. What a season for the Williams team. Racing Bulls in sixth. The gap has been closed between them and the team behind. Aston Martin have gone back up to seventh place, and Aston Martin are 16 points behind. That fight is not over yet. Aston Martin now only a point clear of Haas. Sauber about 6 points behind seventh place Aston Martin, and Alpine, so obviously last in the championship. Alpine have been absolutely terrible this weekend, and I'd be surprised if they score another point in these final two races. Anyway, that was the sprint race, and that's the result in the championships of that sprint. Let's now get on to sprint qualifying itself, because sprint qualifying happening yesterday and it taking place around the same time that qualifying is going to take place today does give us a pretty good indication as to what the running order is, or the pecking order is so far, especially in qualifying trim. Oscar Piastri took pole. George Russell, you can see, though, right behind him, 0.03 of a second only separating the two. Lando Norris in third, ended up a quarter of a second back, I believe, because of a broken floor that he broke at the final corner. So Lando costing himself a chance to win the sprint, which, again, may be costly at the very end of the season. We'll see. Fernando Alonso fourth. Aston Martin have been incredibly quick, and Alonso, this is clearly one of the tracks on the calendar that he does love. It's a proper driver's circuit because you've got so many long, high-speed corners where it's, full commitment, and Fernando, so good at that. Yuki Tsunoda then in fifth, out-qualifying Max Verstappen. Now, Verstappen clearly damaged his car on that first run in SQ3. If he had not damaged his car and had done, if he had been able to do 2 clean runs on the soft tyre in SQ3, I think Max would have just about taken the pole position in the sprint. I think the pace was there, but unlike Verstappen, he did not produce when it mattered. And again, it could very well cost him at the end of this season, because, those extra 3 or 4 points missing from the sprint could be the difference when we get to the very end of the season. You don't know. We'll have to see. But, I do believe Max had the pace for pole position. He's definitely quick enough around this track to be the best. And the Red Bull car, whilst in the sprint it wasn't that great, in quali trim, I think the car is a lot better. So I wouldn't be too concerned if, you're a Red Bull fan. I wouldn't be too concerned by the, the lack of pace that there was in the sprint. Because remember, they can still change the setup between now and qualifying after the sprint. So any issues there still was with the car can still be corrected by the Red Bull mechanics. Antonelli 7th. Antonelli disappointing in the end, given how quick he's been as of late. Antonelli, I think, given where Russell was, Antonelli really should have been at worst in 4th place, maybe even in 3rd. So yeah, Antonelli not doing a great job, I must say, in sprint qualifying. Definitely more potential there. Carlos Sainz 8th. Carlos Sainz continuing his brilliant form. Williams looking pretty quick as well. Not really surprised that Williams are looking fast. Their car is pretty quick around pretty much every racetrack. And then Charles Leclerc 9th. splitting the two Williamses, Albon finishing up in P10. The Ferrari is just awful. Awful, awful, awful. If you look at sprint qualifying, they were consistently slower than Alonso. And even if you look through the session, even Carlos Sainz was, consistently looking better than Leclerc. Ferrari this weekend are a midfield team, without a doubt. They are not on the same level at all as McLaren, Mercedes, and Red Bull. Absolutely no chance are they on the same level as those teams. And it is just remarkable how they have fallen to this point. I mean, obviously, it's been an awful season where the team has just completely fallen apart once again. In these last few years, feels like this team falls apart completely once every 4 or 5 years. But I just don't know what to say at this point. I didn't have really that high expectation coming into this Grand Prix for Ferrari. I did not think they would be competitive here, but they are even slower than I expected. I don't have a lot of hope for Ferrari this weekend. The only way they score points is if Charles Leclerc really puts in a top effort himself, but that car clearly proving hard to drive, and he's going to have to do well, I think, to finish in the top 6 in qualifying, and especially the race on Sunday, given the severe lack of race pace that Ferrari car has. So yeah, dark days at Ferrari. Rest of the field, Isaac Hadjar 11th. Hadjar not really representative of how quick he is, because he finished 11th because he had a lap time deleted at the end of SQ2 for a track limit violation, which initially, when he got through, he knocked out Antonelli, but then Antonelli got back in. Really stupid mistake by Hadjar. He went over the track limits on the entry to a corner where he tried to widen the entry, essentially. Got too greedy on the entry, and that's what cost him. So Hadjar's definitely got the pace to be in the top 10 easily, and I think he will be a top 10 runner this evening. Behrman 12th, doing the best he can. Haas, they just don't have the pace that they had a couple races ago, unfortunately. They've got still, I would say, decent pace. It's not bad. They could still maybe, if they qualify around 12th, 13th, could still end up getting a couple points on Sunday, but they are clearly nowhere near as quick as they were a couple races ago. And it does kind of baffle me looking back. Why were they so quick in those 2 races in Mexico and Brazil, and now suddenly they've dropped off the pace? Not quite sure, but there you go. 13th and 14th, the 2 Saubers, Bortoleto and Hulkenberg. Good to see Bortoleto back on form. Ocon in 15th. Ocon, I don't think you can really complain about his effort. Haas just not that quick. Stroll 16th, awful from him again. Lawson 17th, poor from him. He should be at least a few positions higher, probably 13th, 14th at least in that car. Lewis Hamilton 18th. Hamilton struggling massively with the setup of the car and just the handling of the car in general. And I feel sorry for him, to be honest, because even though what he did in sprint qualifying was not good enough, it was a poor effort. The Ferrari, it's not good, but it's not bad enough to be knocked out of SQ1. Even if he had got through to SQ2, I don't think that Ferrari car, given how quick Lewis is at this stage of his career, I don't think it was fast enough for him to get into the top 10. So, no matter what, it would have been an awful result for Hamilton, even if he had made it through to the second part of sprint qualifying. So, yeah, that's the sad reality with Ferrari this weekend. And then at the back, the 2 Alpines, Gasly and Colapinto. Alpine really slow around this high downforce circuit. But let's go through the sector time data just to understand why it ended up the way it did. By the way, make sure to smash the like button. See, we've already got 60 watching. So yeah, make sure to smash that like button. Let's try and get up to 15 or 20 likes if we can. So if you haven't hit the like button yet, yeah, make sure to do so. The first sector is kind of a mix and match of what's important. You need a really good front end for the first couple corners, and then the next couple corners after that, before the first sector point, you need a very intact rear end of the car. And what I mean by that is a rear end that's not going to step out violently on you. So you need an all-around good car in that first sector, and it is a good show, the first sector, of just how good overall your car is for this circuit. Mercedes and McLaren right up there, only half a tenth separating those two teams. Aston Martin only a tenth off, only proving that their car is genuinely good at this circuit. And then Red Bull fourth, but that's with Yuki Tsunoda. Let's say Max is, let's say he would have been a couple tenths quicker than Tsunoda in this sector. Then Red Bull right on the pace of Mercedes and McLaren. So Mercedes, Red Bull and McLaren in the first sector, they're all pretty much on the same pace. It's the spread between those three teams is half a tenth probably at most. And then Ferrari, quarter of a second immediately off the pace. And as you'll see with this data from the sector times, the problem with the Ferrari, it's not the front end, it's the rear end. The rear end of the car is the issue this weekend, because in the high-speed corners, their car is quite a bit further off the pace than it is in other parts of the lap where you need a better front end. And an example of that is the middle sector. The middle sector, you've got some more slower or medium speed type corners where you need a much better front end than you need in, say, the final sector or the first sector. And the Ferrari, only a tenth off, and looking overall compared to the rest of the field, a lot better than it was in the first sector. So the front end is working, I wouldn't say well, but it's working better than the rear end of the car. But as you'll see in the final sector, again, in the high-speed corners, they are quite a bit off the pace. McLaren and Mercedes only separated by half a tenth. So up until the end of the middle sector, those two teams are absolutely bang on level. Red Bull are right there as well. I think Red Bull are potentially, up until the end of the middle sector, probably slightly quicker than McLaren and Mercedes. And then, of course, we get to that final sector, which we'll get onto in a moment. Williams looking good in the middle sector. Aston Martin too. And then you got Racing Bull, Sauber, Haas and Alpine. And then the final sector is all about high-speed corner performance, where, again, your aerodynamic package is really tested. The McLaren, the best, no surprise there. 10th quicker than Mercedes, and Red Bull a tenth and a half off, but at least it's with Verstappen. So, overall for the lap, I think you could definitely say McLaren have the fastest car, but I don't think it's by a lot. I think overall for the lap, McLaren are probably a tenth quicker than Mercedes, and probably half a tenth to a tenth quicker than Red Bull. Still very close, and considering Red Bull with Verstappen and Mercedes with Russell have better drivers, that's what makes it altogether so close between the two McLarens and the Mercedes of Russell and the Red Bull of Verstappen. So yeah, it is incredibly close through the whole lap between those three teams. Aston Martin looking better in the final sector. And again, Ferrari drop off in the final sector in the high-speed corners. So that's the issue this weekend that's really plaguing them, is those high-speed corners. If they were lapping as well as they were in the middle sector in the first and final sector, then they would be still not that good, but they would be at least in the top probably 5, 6, rather than fighting around 7th, 8th, 9th. So that's what the difference is for Ferrari. They're losing probably a quarter of a second too much in the first and final sector combined. And yeah, that's ultimately costing them. Again, if we go back to the results from sprint qualifying, if you take a quarter of a second away, then Leclerc would have been in fourth place, which would have been a half decent qualifying. So that's the issue for the Ferrari team. Whether they can fix it between now and qualifying, we'll see. I don't think they can, because I think it's just a fundamental issue with the downforce package that they have. We know with Ferrari, they can't run their car as close to the ground as others because of the massive plank issues they've had this season. We've been talking about the plank a lot when it comes to McLaren, obviously because they were disqualified at the last Grand Prix, but Ferrari have had this issue the whole season, and it really hurts them around a track like this. So, yeah, Ferrari, that's why they're off the pace in the way they are. Overall, though, if we go back to the results of sprint qualifying, the top 10, what is the pecking order for qualifying? Again, I think McLaren do have the fastest car, but I think it's only by probably a tenth at most over Mercedes and Red Bull. Good to see those three teams only separated by about a tenth. That's exactly what you want for qualifying. The fourth best team, I think you'd probably have to say, is Aston Martin. Fifth best, Williams. Sixth best. Honestly, I would say sixth best, Racing Bulls, and then seventh, I would go Ferrari. I think what's helping Ferrari's case is having Charles Leclerc in their car. If they had, no disrespect, Isaac Hadjar in that Ferrari instead, then I think there wouldn't be a Ferrari in the top 10. So, yeah, I'd say Ferrari going into qualifying. At best, probably the sixth best car, but honestly, I think they are probably seventh best, which is humiliating for Ferrari. Eighth, it's a toss-up between Haas and Sauber. I think I would probably go Sauber just ahead of Haas. Again, though, very, very close between those two teams. And then the slowest team, obviously, is Alpine. So the fight for pole is, for me, between Verstappen, Russell, Antonelli, Piastri, and Norris. And then for the fight for the rest of the top 10, it's between Alonso, Tsunoda, the two Williamses, two Ferraris, two Racing Bulls, to see who can fit in that back half of the top 10. And it will be a very close battle. And then you've got Haas and Sauber as well, who are not that far away and might be able to spring a surprise. So the fight to get into Q3 is going to be very, very exciting. We could see some real big surprises. Sorry, just had to clear my throat there. So that's what I think the pecking order is going to qualifying. Thus, here is my prediction for the session itself, which is coming up in about 45 minutes' time. Max Verstappen, I do think, will take pole, but it will be very, very close. I think it'll be only a couple hundredths separating him and Russell, who will take second. Third and fourth will be the two McLarens of Piastri and Norris. Antonelli will be in fifth, and then it will be Alonso sixth, Tsunoda seventh, Leclerc eighth, Sainz ninth, and Hadjar 10th. Even though I've said I think Williams are faster than Ferrari, the only reason Leclerc gets ahead of Sainz is purely because Leclerc in qualifying, we know, is most of the time stunning. And I think he will somehow drag that Ferrari into a position of 8th place, which it does not deserve to be in. So, yeah, that's why I've gone for Ferrari in 8th, but Sainz will be right there in 9th. I think Sainz, if it ends up this way in qualifying, I think it's pretty likely Carlos Sainz beats Leclerc in the race tomorrow, given Williams have a pretty good race car and Ferrari definitely do not. And then Isaac Hadjar, I think, will round out the top 10. Hadjar, like I said, he's got the pace to be in the top 10. I don't have any doubt about that. So that's my top 10 prediction for qualifying. Let me know, guys, in the live chat. Do you agree, disagree? Who do you think takes poll? Make sure to vote in the poll running in the chat. And let me know your top 5, top 10. And we'll get into your predictions soon enough. But we'll just come back to here quickly, as we have got just under 45 minutes to go until qualifying begins in Qatar. And I'll just wait for the next minute to tick over, and then I'll get the timer back on screen. And what we're going to do, there you go, 44 minutes remaining. What I'm going to do is, for the next probably 20 minutes, I'm going to read out your comments in the chat, see what you guys are having to say, and then we will go through a bit of a roundup of the teams, just to quickly cover all the teams and talk about, where or what positions or teams should be aiming for. And then we'll finish up with another few final few comments, obviously, before we get into the actual session. And then, we'll get into qualifying itself. But, keep your comments coming in the chat. Let me know, again, your thoughts ahead of this important session in Qatar. And given how hard it was to overtake in the sprint, and it will be pretty hard to overtake tomorrow, tomorrow's race is going to be almost entirely about tyre management. And the reason that is for a couple reasons. One, so hard to overtake. Two, it's obviously this track wears out tyres so much because of the heat and the long, strenuous corners. But also, Pirelli this weekend have limited the teams to only 25 laps maximum on a set of tyres, which ensures a 2-stop strategy for the race. So that's what the race is really going to be about, is the strategy side and the managing tyre side. Because you're not going to, in tomorrow's race, you're not going to want to pit too early. You're going to want to get the most out of your tyres in terms of fulfilling a proper tyre stint and all of that. So yeah, it's going to be again a very strategic race tomorrow. So qualifying tonight is going to be very, very important. And put it this way, this is just my own prediction. And it's I wouldn't say it's a very ambitious prediction, but I'll go with it anyway. I am 95% certain that whoever takes pole position tonight will win the race. Therefore, for Lando Norris, if that is, if it is that likely that pole position wins the race, then this session for Lando Norris is absolutely crucial. I mean, if he doesn't have the greatest qualifying, finishes, third or fourth, it's not the end of the world, because McLaren have got a very quick car in the race, as we saw in the sprint, and they'll find a way to get Lando probably onto the podium. But if he, like I said, if he gets pole in this session, then that could be most of the job done. Not just in winning the race, but remember, if Lando Norris wins the race tomorrow, he is world champion, regardless of what Piastri or Verstappen do. So that is, that's a very simple equation for Lando. Is to, if he wins the race, he is world champion. If he finishes second, then it gets a bit hairy, because obviously then it depends on who wins the race, where the others are, vice versa. So that's why this pole position tonight is potentially, like I said, especially for Lando Norris, so important. But ultimately, we will see. It would certainly make tomorrow's race interesting if qualifying ended up the way I predicted it. Max on pole, Russell second, Piastri third, and Lando in fourth, because then Lando would have quite a bit of work to do to make sure he got on the podium, but also to limit the damage in terms of points lost to Verstappen and to a degree to his teammate Piastri. So very much looking forward to this session to see how it plays out. One mistake in qualifying could be ultimately the difference in the end. As well, before we go any further, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe for more content like this, because we've got plenty of content coming up for you over the course of the winter. Because, of course, Formula 1 season finishes next weekend, and I will have plenty of content coming your way in December and also January and February as well. So make sure to subscribe for more F1 content like this. And of course, next season we'll be doing plenty of qualifying and race watch-alongs and stuff like that. So make sure to join us all for that next season. Make sure to smash the like button. We're only on 11 likes. Let's try and get up to 20 plus likes if we can in the next, say, 10 to 20 minutes. It'd be great if we could do that. But yeah, let's get into some of your comments. Tony Ilias, I think it's Ilas. I can't quite see. The L's and the I's look very similar from where I'm sat in my chair. Asks, if Max were able to win the championship, would it be considered the greatest comeback in the history of Formula 1? Potentially, yeah. The only comeback I can think of, and it's a different... This comeback I'm talking of it's a different type of comeback, but I think at the minute it's considered the greatest comeback of all time, is Niki Lauda, when he returned from his accident, the Nürburgring. He came back, contested the World Championship to the very end of the season, and even though he lost, he then went on to win it next season. So technically his comeback took place over the course of, a year and a half. I think that is currently considered the greatest comeback, but again, it's a different type of comeback. He came back from near death, when Max, his comeback is from a 100-point deficit. So in terms of reversing a championship deficit, yes, Max, if Max was to win the championship, it would be the greatest comeback in championship history. But is it the greatest comeback in F1 history? I think Lauda, his story would probably still have to take it. But, I mean, I think one thing to consider with Max Verstappen is, what do you call it? If he does win this championship, it could, in some people's eyes, label him as the greatest of all time. Whether he truly is or not, it's a debate to be had. If he does win this championship, is he at that point the greatest ever? But yeah, a lot of interesting conversations will take place, I think, over the winter, and debates will take place over the winter if he does win the championship. And if he does win the championship, we will do a video on this channel over the winter break where we will do the comparison Verstappen versus Hamilton to see at this moment, is Max the greatest, or how does he compare to Hamilton's career? But still, even though Max is only 25 points behind, it is still very likely that Lando Norris wins the championship, because Lando, now that the sprint is out of the way, Lando only has to finish on the podium once in these final two races to be champion. he could finish. He could finish third. Let's say Verstappen is the one who ends up second in the championship to Norris at the end of the season. Then Lando only has to finish third tomorrow, and then finish fourth in Abu Dhabi, and he would finish ahead of Verstappen and be champion. To beat Piastri, Lando needs to finish third in tomorrow's race and next weekend's race. So, from Lando's perspective, it really is in his hands. And I think from Lando's point of view, he needs to really remember that, you know, he has a very big advantage in these final two races in that he doesn't need to win any of the final two races to be champion. That's a big advantage to have. That's, you know, once you get to that point, 99% of the time you end up becoming champion. So, yeah, we'll see whether Lando, you know, does in the end win it. I still think he will. I don't think though it'll be this weekend. I think, as I've gone with Verstappen to get pole, I think Verstappen will win the race, and Norris I think will finish third or fourth. If he finishes third, then the gap's 15 points. Finishes fourth, it goes down to 12 points, and then in Abu Dhabi, I think Lando will finish on the podium, which would be the only thing he needs at that point to be champion. So, yeah, still all in Lando's hands is the point I'm trying to make. Anyway, let's scroll up a bit and read out some of the earlier comments. Laurie Rastogi, good to see you, says, to be honest, theoretically a sprint race was probably always going to be a procession. Difficult to overtake, and there's no mandatory pit stops. Yeah, it was never going to be a proper race. And Laurie also saying, hear me out. Imagine if Ferrari are in a similar or worse position next year than last year. I think like when he says last year, I think he means this year. Williams have a better car than Ferrari. Hamilton will retire next year and Sainz will be glad he joined. Well, the scenario you're talking about there is what I think will happen next season. I think Williams will have a faster car next season than Ferrari, and I think Ferrari at best will be fourth or fifth best team next season. So the thing is, though, is I think Ferrari, if you look at this season, they've been the fourth best team, but they've still had chances to win and still had quite a few podiums over the course of the season as well. Next season, even if they were to be fourth in the championship again, I think they'll be a lot further away from the championship winners in terms of raw pace than they have been this season. Because as what does happen in every new set of regulations, the field spreads, and if Ferrari do start off next season in not good shape, they're going to be quite far off the pace. So yeah, I don't have good hopes for the Ferrari team next season. We'll see where they end up, but yeah, I just do not have good hope for them. The only thing I hope is that, if they are at least as competitive next season as they are now, then at least they haven't got any worse. That is something. Because this season has been bad, but, if they get even worse next season and they become properly a midfield team, which they were a few years ago, then they'll be starting so far behind whoever is at the front that it will take them years to catch up. Because remember, in 2020 and 2021, they were a midfield team. But what allowed them to catch up was a reset of the regulations in 2022. And then since then, they've been a front-running team and, won races and all that stuff. If you start off as a midfield team at the start of a new set of regulations, unless you've got some really great, talented people, it's pretty hard to overturn that and turn yourself from midfield to championship contenders. Saying that, McLaren did do that in this set of regulations. In 2022, McLaren were 5th in the championship. Midfield team, only scored a few points at best per race, and, look at them now. Back-to-back Constructors champion. So it's not impossible, but it is pretty unlikely. If you go back and look at other sets of regulations, where we've had big regulation changes, it's pretty unlikely that you go from the midfield to the front during a set of regulations during that certain period and end up becoming champions. Normally, whatever team is successful in that particular period tends to start off that set of regulations with a pretty good car. So, personally, next season, I think the two fastest teams will be McLaren and Mercedes. I think Mercedes-powered teams next season are going to be in very, very good shape. So, yeah, Ferrari, I don't have good hopes for them. And I think it very well could be Leclerc's final year at the team next season. Anyway, before I go on to any more comments, I just want to post a link of the stream out one final time. So just give me a second, guys. Let me just post this out, and then we'll get on to more of your comments. Make sure to keep them coming. Come join us here to watch along a crucial qualifying in Qatar. And there you go. So hopefully we'll get some more jumping on. Hello to Crystal. Good to see you. He says Lando needs to win tomorrow. Don't trust him to hold his nerve in Abu Dhabi. Yeah, I'm not even sure Lando trusts himself to hold his nerve. So yeah, this weekend is really the weekend where he needs to get that done. Right, let me just scroll down. Crystal says, best case scenario for Max tomorrow, Oscar first, Max second, Russell third, Norris fourth. I would have agreed with you before the weekend, but now I've seen the running. I think if Max is going to win this race, he needs pole. If he's not on pole position, I just don't see Verstappen winning. And a couple of reasons for that. One, so hard to overtake, but also I don't think the Red Bull has enough pace to come from second or third and win, especially if it's a McLaren or a Mercedes on pole, which it very likely will be if it's not Red Bull. So, yeah, if Max is going to win this race, he must get pole position. And I'd say probably the same for Oscar Piastri or Lando Norris. If they're going to win this race, it has to be with them starting from pole. Because I just don't see... Because it's so close between the front three teams, I just don't see any damage, let's say, being repaired the following day. I think this session is going to mostly decide the result of tomorrow's race, which is sad to say, but it's just the nature of the beast, unfortunately. And Chris was saying, I've worked out all three of Norris, Piastri, and Verstappen could end up on the same points if, firstly, in Qatar, Piastri wins, Max finishes second, and Lando DNFs. And then Max wins in Abu Dhabi, Norris second, Piastri third. So Norris would score 18 points. Max would score 43 points. And then Piastri would score. Yeah. So, yeah, you're bang on. It could happen. It could absolutely happen. Remember Lando Norris this time last year at this Grand Prix was running in second, fighting Verstappen. Looked pretty comfortable that he was going to finish at least second. And then suddenly he got a 10-second stop-go penalty for a yellow flag infringement. And he ended up in, was it 10th, 9th, something like that. So you just never know. All it takes is one moment for it to all go wrong. Tony saying tomorrow's race, because of the Force 2 stop, means that it won't be any spicy strategies or make it even harder to overtake, which really sucks. Yeah, it does suck. I really am just pissed off at this point with Pirelli, who I just hope at this point lose the tender to be the tyre supplier for Formula One, because I've had enough of them. They just don't produce tyres which are consistently good enough to offer exciting enough races. And yeah, there needs to be a change. You know, by the time their contract comes to an end, which I think is in 2 or 3 years' time, would have been almost 20 years with Pirelli. If you look at Formula One history, normally after 15, 20 years, we get some new tyre suppliers in. So, yeah, I very much would like a new tyre supplier. I don't know who that's going to be. Bridgestone I think I've talked about coming back in possibly, but I don't think they know for sure. Michelin, I don't think are coming back in at all. I don't think that's going to happen. But I really hope someone is serious about becoming the tyre supplier, because these tyres, I've just had enough of them. I really have. Pirelli have continuously failed us ever since 2012/13. But right, I'll read out probably one final comment, and then we'll get on to we'll round up the teams. Make sure to keep the comments coming though. Tony saying it's crazy how much teams can improve over the years. Williams were the worst team for like a decade, and now they're getting podiums on a solid midfield team. I wouldn't say they were the worst team for a decade. I think that's probably exaggerating it a bit. They were the worst team on the grid for what, about 5 years? I think maybe 6. It felt like a decade for the Williams team, but yeah, it is. You know, once you get the right people in place with the right drivers as well, it's, you know, you can turn things around pretty quickly. But it's getting those people, you know, the right people in the right positions, not just on the driver's side, but you know, your design team principal, all of that stuff. Once it all clicks into place, but look at Sauber, for example. Sauber a couple of years ago were dreadful, and now they're obviously building towards 2026 when they're going to be the Audi team. You know, they've hired some very talented people, put some people in place in some good positions, and suddenly they look like a much stronger outfit. So yeah, looking good. And that is another story of 2026 I cannot wait to delve into, which is how good will Audi be? Personally, I think Audi will be a strong midfield team next season. I think they'll be consistently scoring points. And I do think, here's a hot take, I think Audi will finish on the podium at least a couple times next season. It will be in races where we have loads of rain or loads of retirements or whatever. But yeah, I think Audi will grab a couple podiums next season. If they do start, though, as well as I think they will, which is, I think they'll probably be like the 6th, 7th best team on the grid, which I think would be a good start for Audi if they were that competitive. If they do start like that and they keep improving at a good rate, I think by the probably 2028 season, I think you could see Audi start to win races. And then if we have a new set of regulations come in, say in 2029 or 2030, then I think by then Audi should be a proper front-running team that's hopefully fighting for championships. So we'll keep our eyes peeled on what Audi do. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to where they're going to be at. But Todd saying Chaz Tire Co. Yeah, can't wait to see where Audi are at in 2026. Really, honestly, more I think about next season, I really can't wait, because not only have we got a new team on the grid, so 11 teams next season, we've got so many, it feels like, different stories and obviously different manufacturers. We've got Mercedes, Ferrari, Ford, Honda, Audi, and then obviously in 2028, General Motors will be coming into Formula One as a power unit manufacturer. And like I said, there are so many different stories throughout the field. It's going to be a very interesting pre-season testing and first few races to see just where everyone is. And hopefully we get some surprises, which I think we will. I think there'll be a couple surprises in terms of where certain teams are at. So, yeah. I will, by the way, talking about my winter break content, I will be doing an early 2026 predictions video, which obviously is not going to be based on any running or anything, but it's just me throwing out my predictions for what I think is going to happen, and we'll see how correct I am. Quickly, though, I'm going to just do a quick round for the teams to just go through what teams should be aiming for in this session. And we'll start, of course, with McLaren. Of course, pole position is what their aim needs to be, but it's going to be pretty hard to get because Verstappen and Russell are on top form, and that Red Bull and Mercedes cars are within a tenth or so of the McLarens. So it's going to take, for the McLaren drivers to get pole, it's going to take for them to be on their absolute best, or in their absolute best form. If they make one little mistake, it's going to cost them dearly, because that is just how close and how fine it is in those top 4, top 5 positions. But if they can somehow lock out the front row, I think that would be an honestly phenomenal job, because I think it's so close that really, I wouldn't say it's impossible to lock out the front row, but it is looking very hard to do that, given how close and competitive it is. Of course, who ends up on pole at McLaren? Crucial in regards to the championship. So far this weekend, Piastri has looked the better driver. Can he keep that up going into qualifying? For Red Bull, as I said, with sprint qualifying, I think without Max's damage and very unclean running he had in SQ3, I think he could have had pole. And I think as long as today he has a clean qualifying, and especially a clean Q3 in terms of his running and not making any mistakes, I think he can absolutely take pole position. It will be very close between him and Russell and the McLarens, but we know that Verstappen has the ability to produce the goods when it is most needed. Of course, yesterday he didn't do that, which is quite rare of Verstappen, but here's another chance for Max to get what is, this weekend, such an incredibly important pole position. Keep an eye on Yuki Tsunoda, by the way, who's having probably the best weekend of his season so far. For the Ferrari team, if you're a Ferrari fan, like I said earlier, you're going to have to hide behind whatever you have watching this session, because it is going to be a horror show. The best I can see is that Leclerc gets in the top 7, maybe top 6, if maybe Tsunoda or Sainz or someone like that doesn't quite get it together in Q3. But I would be shocked if they were in the top 5. I really, really would, because that car doesn't look anywhere near like a top 5 car, even with Leclerc in it. So, very likely, Leclerc will get into Q3 just about and end up in the back end of the top 10. And for Lewis Hamilton, given Ferrari struggles, as long as Hamilton gets through to Q2, then I think that's at least good enough, considering that Lewis is not obviously as quick as Leclerc. But if he gets knocked down Q1 again, then yeah, Hamilton's weekend is basically over at that point. For Mercedes, of course, they took pole position at this Grand Prix last year in controversial circumstances, with Verstappen being given a 1-place penalty. Obviously, that was all corrected at the first corner of the race last year. But this time around, they can legitimately get what would be a legitimate pole position. George Russell, again, looking very, very quick. He's always been very fast here since we started coming here in 2023. Kimi Antonelli, though, I'm a bit curious about, because he was a bit off the pace in sprint qualifying and the sprint race as well compared to his teammate. So I'm wondering now into this session, with a bit of a reset, whether Antonelli can get in there and fight for pole position. If he shows the type of pace he showed in Vegas and Brazil, Antonelli could absolutely take pole position tonight. But if he's showing the type of form he did in sprint qualifying, then a third row grid position is probably where he will end up. But Mercedes pole position is very, very much possible. But again, it's all down, I think, to how Russell performs compared to Verstappen and the two McLaren drivers. We know Russell is good enough to get the job done over a qualifying lap. Can he, though, ultimately end up on pole? And if he does, could very well take Mercedes' third win 2025. On to the other midfield teams. Aston Martin, keep an eye out for them. Fernando Alonso looking very quick. Alonso pretty likely to end up 6th or 7th, I think, in the in qualifying, as long as he doesn't have any gets blocked by anyone or make any mistakes. Lance Stroll, you would hope, would not get eliminated in Q1, but it is Lance Stroll we are talking about. But Alonso, yeah, looking great, and Aston Martin looks like they've got, maybe not in the race conditions, but definitely in qualifying, they've got the fastest midfield car, no doubt about that. Alpine, shit slow. Haas look decent, but not top 10 material. Maybe in the race they'll be top 10 material. We know they tend to be quicker in the races compared to qualifying. But yeah, they look to be about the same pace as Sauber, who are hovering also outside of the top 10. So yeah, 12th, 13th, something like that. That's probably the best you can expect from the team tonight. Racing Bulls definitely can get into the top 10. Isaac Hadjar, as long as he doesn't get his lap time deleted like he did in sprint qualifying yesterday, Hadjar, I'm pretty sure, will make the top 10. Liam Lawson, though, needs to improve quite a bit. He was nearly half a second slower than his teammate in qualifying, which is nowhere near good enough. So Lawson should easily be in Q2. Hadjar, will see if he can make Q3, and if he does, whether he can get another great result like he has done many times this season. Williams could easily get both cars into the top 10 like they did in sprint qualifying. Carlos Sainz is looking very quick. Alex Albon hasn't had the greatest weekend so far, but looks like he has enough pace that he could just about sneak into the top 10. Depends, though, on where or how Hadjar does and how Lewis Hamilton does in the Ferrari as well, if Hamilton obviously gets through to Q2. So we'll have to see how it all shakes out. But I'd be very surprised if Williams don't get at least one car into Q3. And for Sauber, both Bortoletto and Hulkenberg looking good. Going to take a special lap, though, from either driver to get into Q3. I think they're just probably a tenth or so shy of being top 10 runners. And a quick reminder, here's my prediction for qualifying for this Qatar Grand Prix. Max Verstappen, I think, will take pole just about from George Russell. And then I'm going Piastri 3rd, Norris 4th, Antonelli 5th, Alonso 6th, Tsunoda 7th, Leclerc 8th, Sainz 9th, and Isaac Hadjar in 10th. So that's what I think. Let me know right before we get into this session, guys. What do you think? Who will take pole? What will the top 5 end up? Or how will it end up? Let me know in the live chat. Quickly, though, as we are right before qualifying, as well, make sure to smash the like button. We're on 16 likes. Let's try and get up to 25 or 30 plus likes if we can in the next 10 minutes. It'd be great if we could do that. I just want to quickly do a quick channel update in regards to what the plan is for the channel between now and Christmas. So, obviously this weekend I'm doing plenty of streams, doing a stream tonight. Tomorrow I'll be doing the race watch along. And then on Monday, I'll be doing my podcast reviewing whatever happens in the race. Next weekend, the plan in terms of streaming depends purely on whether the championship is decided this weekend or not. If it is decided this weekend, the next weekend, I will only be doing a race watch along, and I'll do a qualifying preview stream on the Friday night and miss qualifying. But if the championship does go down to the final race, which I think it probably will, then I will be doing, obviously, a qualifying and race watch along next weekend for the final race in Abu Dhabi. And of course, there'll be a podcast the day after reviewing the race. And then, once we're done with the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix and the podcast the day after, there's, I think the Monday, the day after the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix is the 8th of December. So that's 2.5 weeks before Christmas. In that 2.5 weeks, there will be 4 recorded videos uploaded to the channel. There will be a load more content coming out in January and February, but I'll let you guys know about that later on when I get to doing it. One of those videos is going to be a mid-season ranking video. One of them will be a video about how the championship was won by whoever wins it. The other 2 videos, I can't exactly remember what those videos are going to be. I've got them written down somewhere, but I just need to find exactly what I selected to upload before the Christmas and New Year break. But yeah, there will be 4 videos between the end of the season and Christmas on the channel. And then, of course, we'll have the Christmas and New Year break. And then, probably around the middle of January, I will start to upload the rest of my winter break content that I've got planned. And the winter break content will continue, hopefully, into the middle of February. And then, once we get to the middle of February, we'll be fully concentrating on 2026. Of course, there is a pre-season test in Barcelona at the end of January. I will be doing a live stream to cover whatever happens in that test, the news, and if there's any lap times or whatever, then yeah, I'll do a live stream to cover, to review that particular test. That'll be the very end of January. Probably be my next live stream after the end of the season. So yeah, that is the plan between now and Christmas. So still plenty of content coming your way on the channel, as we've got just 5 minutes to go until qualifying is underway. So I'm going to have a quick sip of my drink to just mute myself, just to clear my throat as well. And then I think we'll just get right into this session. Right, so let's get into, guys, qualifying for the Qatar Grand Prix. And let's start with the championship standings and how they look going into this such important session in the desert. Lando Norris, after the sprint race, is 22 points clear of Oscar Piastri. Max Verstappen third, 25 points behind. Can Piastri and Verstappen do anything about Lando Norris's lead? Then you've got George Russell fourth, Leclerc fifth, Hamilton sixth, Antonelli seventh, Albon eighth, Hadjar ninth, and Hulkenberg in 10th. On the constructors' side, McLaren, of course, the champions. Mercedes in second, just over 40 points clear of Red Bull. And then Ferrari in fourth, Williams fifth, Racing Bull sixth, Aston Martin now only 1 point clear of Haas in seventh after the sprint race where Alonso scored a couple points. And then Sauber in ninth and Alpine last in the championship. But let's get on to the front-running teams and some key stats regarding those teams coming into this session. McLaren, remember, have never taken pole position in Qatar. They've taken pole position for sprint races here before, but never for the actual race itself. But they have taken the last 3 pole positions in 2025 in Vegas, Brazil, and Mexico. Last year, 3rd and 4th they were on the grid. Ended up 3rd and 10th, I think, in the race. Will it end up being better today? It's going to be very close. Red Bull, they have taken pole position here before. 2023 with Max Verstappen, of course, a year that he dominated. Their last pole position in Formula 1, though, was 4 races ago in Austin, just over a month ago. Last year, they were 2nd and 9th on the grid. Obviously, Verstappen denied pole with that 1-place penalty. Can he go 1 step better today? Ferrari also, like McLaren, have never taken pole position in Qatar. Their chances of pole are basically none. Their last pole position in Formula 1 was 9 races ago. That was at the Hungarian Grand Prix, which was 4 months ago now. Or I think just under 4 months ago. Quite a while in Formula 1 terms. 5th and 7th they were last year. I think as a team, they'd be very happy if they got a result like that this evening. And for Mercedes, they did technically take pole position last year with George Russell, even though it was because of a grid penalty for Verstappen. Their last pole position in F1 was 5 races ago in Singapore, a brilliant lap that Russell did that particular weekend. And yeah, last year, 1st and 6th in qualifying, they could very well end up with a similar result tonight. Let's see if they will. As Q1 is about to start, as all the cars coming out of the pit lane nearly causing crashes. Ocon complaining on the radio that he was nearly pushed into the wall. So yeah, not great there. Not a great start. But thankfully, they've all queued up at the end of the pit lane, and they're all good. No tyre restrictions for qualifying. Of course, no one's going to do 25 laps on the same tyre in qualifying. It's all about fresh when it comes for your tyres. And cheers to Brabham, who says he enjoyed my detailed analysis of Alpine. It was very detailed. Thank you for that. As make sure, by the way, if you haven't already, to smash a like button. We're on 19 likes. Let's try and get up to 30 plus likes if we can in the next 20 minutes. It'd be great if we could do that. So make sure to smash that like button. As the session is going to start in 30 seconds time. I will sync up the timer at the 17-minute mark. And then we will get properly into this session. You can do 2 consecutive runs on the soft tyre around this track. So we will probably see that a bit in Q1. But I think once we get to Q2 and Q3, I think we're going to see drivers only doing 1 run on their soft tyre to minimise wear for the race tomorrow, where they're going to need at least 3 sets of tyres to get through the race. Maybe even 4 sets. You never know. Could have a 3-stop strategy for a few cars out there. As the session has begun, and this is Carlos Sainz we're looking at, who's had a very good weekend. And he's out there already getting his tyres fired up. There's still many cars queued up in the pit lane. Very slow coming out of the pit lane it is. And there you go. 17 minutes remain in Q1. Max Verstappen still in the garage, which I think is a smart thing to do. Doesn't have to wait in the pit lane and let his car overheat, which is pointless, really. Especially when he needs more than ever to not have any reliability issues when the other teams can, take that risk. And so here comes Carlos Sainz. Pole position, by the way, yesterday was a 1:20.0, I believe, in sprint qualifying. Let me just confirm that. Yes, it was. So 1:20.0. So hello to Turbo Power. I'm good. Hopefully you are as well. You would expect, given the track has continued to rubber up and improve, you'd expect they would lower that best time in this session. So pole position tonight, I think, will be a mid 1:19. So in this session, I think the best times we'll be seeing will probably be a mid 1:20. To get through to Q2, you're going to have to do a 1:20 lap time, I think, to absolutely make sure of your entry. But I think if the slowest lap time you can do to get through will probably be a 1:21.1 or a 1:21.2 to get through. As Sainz coming up to the final corner now. And through the final corner. And Carlos Sainz does a 1:22.3, which is pretty slow. And that's not a good start from him. As Hulkenberg goes second on a 22.4. Yeah, like I said, a low, it was like a 1:21.2, 1:21.3 is the slowest lap time I can see that will make it through to Q2. As Bortoleto does a 21.9, that's a decent start from the Brazilian, who looks like he's back in form, which is good to see. As Ocon does a 22.0. Oliver Behrman goes quickest on a 21.6. That's a very good start for Behrman, who's been brilliant in qualifying in the second half of this season. Liam Lawson does a 21.6 and goes second. As Behrman is replaced at the top by Isaac Hadjar, does a 1:21.4. Very good start there from Hadjar. As Alonso is on a super quick lap to start this session. And so is Max Verstappen. So already some hot lap times out there. Let me just put Ocon up to 5th place. As Leclerc only goes 4th on a 21.9. That is a very poor lap time by the Ferrari. As Alonso does a 1:20.9. What a lap time from Alonso. That's a super, super lap. As it's Alonso, Hadjar, Behrman, Lawson, Leclerc, Bortoleto, Ocon, Stroll. As Gasly's gone up to 7th there. As Max Verstappen goes slightly slower than Alonso. So it just shows you how great that lap time is from Fernando. Literally right in the mix with the front runners. As here comes the championship leader, Lando Norris, into the final corner. As Tsunoda goes third. And Lando Norris, only a 21.4, which is, yeah, not good. Not good at all from Norris. Not putting him at risk of being eliminated or anything, but you would have expected him to have a much stronger start to the session than that. As George Russell goes quickest, a 1:20.9, keeping up that super impressive pace he's had this weekend. Here comes Oscar Piastri, who goes quickest on a 1:20.7. That is a stunning lap time to start this session, and it's such a good lap time. I don't think Piastri has to go out again, to be honest. That is easily enough to get him into Q2. As is a replay of Colapinto, I think, potentially getting held up by someone. So Piastri, Russell, Alonso, Verstappen, and Tsunoda. That is your top 5. As that's Albon running wide at the penultimate corner. As Antonelli in 6th, but 6.5 tenths slower than Piastri, and half a second slower than his teammate. So pretty poor start there from Antonelli. As Alex Albon only goes up to 12th place. So we've got Hadjar 7th, Norris 8th. Hulkenberg has gone up to 9th. Looking a lot better there for Hulkenberg. As Bortoletto now goes 7th. So Sauber looking good. As Behrman goes up to 5th. So big improvement from those midfield teams. As well, Albon 13th, Sainz 14th, Ocon in 15th. So both Ferraris at the moment are in the drop zone. Leclerc 16th, Lewis Hamilton is in 19th. And I told you that lap from Leclerc was poor, and that's an example of it. As Lance Stroll improves up to 9th on a 21.3. That's still not going to be enough to get him into Q2. As Alonso improves again to a 1:20.8 and goes second. Alonso, I don't think needs to go out again, to be honest. I think he's done enough. He's definitely on his way through to Q2. Of course, he will keep doing more laps to build up his confidence, but Alonso is definitely on his way to Q2, no doubt about it. And I think we could say that comfortably for the top 4. They're all already through to Q2. Here is Charles Leclerc, though. Can he improve? He needs to do, really, a 1:21.2, 1:21.3 at least to put himself in a position to, a good enough position to where he could probably get through with another improved lap going into the end of this session. So, if he can get himself probably, into 6th, say, just ahead of Tsunoda, this would be a good enough improvement then for Leclerc to make his way possibly through to Q2. Liam Lawson, what a lap from him. Up to P5 on a 1:21.0. That should be good enough for Lawson to get through. Here comes Leclerc, who just about goes ahead of Lawson. So yeah, Leclerc, I think he's done a good enough lap there. I think Leclerc should now be through to Q2. As here comes Isaac Hadjar, who goes quickest. What a lap. 1:20.6. Racing Bulls have turned on the pace and have got us all very excited as Pierre Gasly, in what is, or has looked so far, the slowest car, has just done a purple middle sector. This track is ramping up massively in terms of grip and speed. As Gasly comes to the line and goes second. That is going to get people's eyebrows raised very firmly, because if Gasly in that car is going second, that is, yeah, a sign of just how much this track is improving. As Lewis Hamilton goes up to sixth place. And we might see, I said a mid 1 minute 20, like a 120.4, 120.5 would be the quickest lap time in this session. Might have to revise that in a moment, because you've got Hadjar quickest on a 120.6. Either it's very close out there, or the track is a lot quicker than the teams expected. As that's a replay of, I think, Colapinto bouncing through some gravel. So currently the top 10, it's Hadjar, Gasly, Piastri, Alonso, Russell, Hamilton, Verstappen, Leclerc, Lawson, and Behrman, as Max Verstappen's on another lap. Will Max go quickest? He is currently, so far on this lap, he's actually slower than Hadjar, but has he had a good enough final sector? Here comes Verstappen. And he does go quickest by 3/4 of a tenth. So 120.5, that is definitely good enough for Max to get through Q2. As Lando Norris, by the way, down in 15th. Needs to be getting a move on. As Tsunoda only goes up to 10th. Tsunoda might be in a slight bit of danger with that time. I think he'll be fine, but it might get a bit close for comfort, as Lando Norris is on a very quick lap now. As Alex Albon goes up to 8th. Carlos Sainz goes 5th. What a lap by Sainz, and he's definitely now through to Q2 on a 120.7. Lando Norris comes to the line and goes quickest with a 120.1. That is a scary lap time at this part of qualifying. That's nearly as quick as the sprint pole position yesterday. Piastri goes second. Antonelli goes 4th, as we're now in the final 5 minutes of the session. But that is terrifying pace from McLaren. That's only a 10th slower than pole position yesterday in the sprint qualifying session. So that shows you just how quick that McLaren is. Can anyone get near it? As Behrman goes up to 7th. What a lap for Behrman. Hulkenberg is up to 9th. We got some big laps happening out there. As now in the drop zone, we've got Lawson, Tsunoda, Ocon, Stroll, and Colapinto. As Bortoletto is in 14th. Leclerc, the driver at risk, in 15th at the minute. He's on an outlap. As Russell goes 3rd. Couple tenths shy of the McLarens. Have McLaren shown their true hand and shown to be too quick this evening? It's only Q1, but yeah, stunning lap times from the McLarens. As here is Lance Stroll in the drop zone, as he always is. He's going to get eliminated in Q1 here, but let's just pretend that he has a chance, as his teammate Alonso is just completing the first sector now. Alonso's done a very good first sector. As Lance Stroll round the final corner, comes to the line and stays in 19th. Absolutely hopeless. Everyone's finding improvement but him. Almost makes you think that he's the problem. Looking at the lap times, though, I would say you've got Leclerc in 15th on a 121.0. He's probably, I don't think there's much more improvement that can be found to get into Q2. I think if you're looking at Leclerc, I think he's, if he finds another 10th or so, that should be enough. As Alonso goes from 11th to 6th. So Alonso comfortably through then to Q2. As Leclerc does start his final run in Q1. And yeah, if he can find a 10th or a couple 10ths, I think that should be enough. Stroll and Colapinto are definitely going to get eliminated here. So it's Lawson, Tsunoda and Ocon that Ferrari need to worry about. As Leclerc does a good first sector. Now into the middle sector where this is actually Ferrari's best part of the lap. Through turn 10. Car looks stable. What's the middle sector time looking like? Quarter of a second off Norris. He's going to end up probably just about in the top 10. So, yeah, this lap will be good enough to get him into Q2, but it's not going to give the Ferrari team much confidence going into Q2. As Leclerc comes to the line, he does go 5th, but only just ahead of Antonelli, Alonso, Hadjar, Gasly, and all those drivers. So Leclerc is safe. As Max Verstappen on a much better lap. He's only a 10th off Norris after the first 2 sectors. Max might be able to go quickest here, and if he can, proves that he can take pole position this evening and that he can take the McLarens on. Tsunoda is improving, but not sure it's by enough, as Verstappen getting a bit of a swapper on in the final corner to the line. Doesn't improve his final sector. He would have gone definitely 3rd with that lap if he had not had that poor final corner. Here comes Tsunoda. Can he get into Q2? He goes 12th on a 120.7. I think that will just about be enough, as Liam Lawson goes 5th. What an improvement. He was in the drop zone. Albon goes from the drop zone to 10th. And Lewis Hamilton is now in the drop zone and needs to find about a 10th or so, as Hulkenberg 11th. Tsunoda now the driver at risk. Carlos Sainz improves up to 5th. He is now safe as the checkered flag now falls. These are your final laps. Lance Stroll only 18th. Pathetic effort from the Canadian. Colapinto 19th. So that pushes Ocon to the very back, but Ocon is improving. Pierre Gasly, what a lap, up to 5th. Remember, he was 2nd on the grid here in 2021 at this track. Antonelli up to 4th. Ocon only 16th. Bortoleto goes 14th, so Tsunoda is out. And Lewis Hamilton is pitted, so Hamilton is 18th again. God, this guy does not have any luck. As Behrman goes up to 8th. And that is it. That's all the drivers knocked out then. As here comes George Russell on one final lap. And goes quickest on a 120.0. Mercedes proving they've got the pace to fight for pole. No doubt about that. But there you go. What a fast and furious session in Qatar. We've still got another 2 parts of qualifying to go. Let's go through your drivers who've made it through to Q2. Russell, Norris, Piastri, Verstappen. Gasly's just had his lap time deleted, by the way, but he's still made it through. So yeah, Verstappen has made it through, and so has Sainz, Lawson. Let me just update some of the order correctly. Yeah, Sainz, Lawson, Behrman, Leclerc, Antonelli, Alonso, Hadjar, Albon, Hulkenberg, Bortoleto, and Pierre Gasly all going through to Q2. But knocked out in Q1, Yuki Tsunoda, Esteban Ocon, Lewis Hamilton, Lance Stroll, and Franco Colapinto. And yeah, Hamilton may as well just forfeit tomorrow's race because that car is rubbish. And with him not at his best either, it's just compounding and destroying his weekend. But that was, like I said, a very hot in terms of speed. Q1, very, very quick. I thought it'd be a mid 1 minute 20. It would be the fastest time. It ended up being a 1:20.0. And that lap time that Russell did was only a couple hundredths of a second slower than pole position in sprint qualifying. So the pace is very hot. No doubt about it. But yeah, Q2. Let me get the graphics ready. There you go. Obviously, it'll be a 15-minute long session. We'll knock out the next 5 slowest. We could, though, definitely see a surprise or two in this second part of qualifying, especially with Ferrari looking as slow as they look. Behrman looked great in Q1. Pierre Gasly did as well, even though he had his lap time deleted at the end. Lawson, great lap at the end. Carlos Sainz was consistently good. Hadjar, in the end, that lap he did a 1:20.6. He didn't need to improve on it. It still made it his way through. So Isaac Hadjar's having a great day as well. So some really strong midfield runners out there. And yeah, Nib, good to see Nib in the chat saying pole might be a high 18. It could be. It very well could be. The track, very, very quick, a lot quicker than I expected. We'll see. If they're in the mid 1 minute 19s in Q2, then I think, yeah, they could do a very low or 119 or a very late 118. But we'll see, ultimately. Laurie Rastogi saying, with the exception of Las Vegas, Ocon has been miles off Behrman has had a very poor second half of the season. I know Ocon scored points in Mexico, but Behrman was miles better in that race. Yeah, most of the time he has been miles off and definitely needs to step it up next season now that Behrman has clearly improved. It's been a bit of a difficult season for Haas because the car's been all over the place. It's not been consistently quick like, say, the Racing Bulls car has, where it's always been solid top 10 material all the time. It's been all over the place. Remember in Australia, at the start of the year, they looked horrendous. And then just one race later, they ended up finishing 5th. So it's a very inconsistent car. Is the Haas car for 2025. As a McLaren fan on the TV showing off his baby. I do hope Haas have a good end to the season, though, because I do fear for them a bit for next season. I think they're one of the midfield teams that are going to drop off a lot and finish. I could see Haas finishing not last in the championship, but 9th or 10th, I think, is very likely where they'll end up. Probably the only teams they'll end up beating will be, Cadillac and maybe Racing Bulls if Racing Bulls drop off even further. But yeah, I could see Haas finishing 10th next season, only ahead of Cadillac. Cadillac, by the way, they're going to be the slowest team next season, but I think they will score points, and I think they will not be as far off the pace as people expect. But you're going to have to give them probably until 2028 at least for them to actually start becoming a team that can, fight for points consistently once they get their works power unit in place and probably get everything ready. The first couple years for them will just be a learning experience. But can't wait to see what they do next season with, looks like it's going to be Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas both returning to the grid for next season. Q2 about to start in 3, 2, 1. And Q2 is underway. Will we get a couple surprises? I think we very well could. Especially with Ferrari on the back foot. As well, Antonelli, again, not looking great in that session. Remember, he was lucky, really, to get through to the third part of sprint qualifying yesterday. He only did it because Hadjar had his lap time deleted. So, very fortunate. And he's not looking like he's really improved. As we are looking at the sole Red Bull remaining, which is Max Verstappen. And there you go, 14 minutes to go in Q2. Verstappen was on a very quick lap at the end of Q1, but made a mistake at the final corner. So there is more pace in that Red Bull, but whether there's enough pace to be on pole, we still don't know for sure. I still think they've got the pace to... they've got enough pace to where Max can get pole, but whether he will is another story. Because Russell looking phenomenally quick, and McLaren looking very fast as well. But let's see what Max can do. Quickest time in Q1 was a 1:20.0. If he can, dip straight into the 1 minute 19s, that would be super impressive. Not sure if this is a fresh set of tyres, though. And Max is not pushing. He's doing a warm-up lap. Yeah, so we'll have to wait to see what Max does once he actually does a proper lap. Because this is, clearly a warm-up lap. As Alex Albon we're looking at, who is on a lap. Both Williamses, actually, are on a lap. Let's see what lap times they can do. If the front-running pace is a mid 1 minute 19 in this session, then really, you're going to have to be doing a low 1 minute 20 to get into Q3. As Albon comes into the pits, clearly not happy with something. As Behrman has completed the first 2 sectors on his lap. Behrman driving very well. Getting the best out of the car. As Behrman into the final corner. As Hulkenberg goes quickest. Does he remain there? No, he does not, because Oliver Behrman does a 1:20.4, which is a very quick lap time from Behrman to start this session. Hulkenberg is second. Bortoletto is third. Not anymore, because Leclerc has gone second, but Leclerc 3.5 tenths off the pace of Behrman. I really hope that was on a used set of tyres for Leclerc, which I know Ferrari do quite often in Q2. If it is on a used set, then that lap time would have been a 1:20.2, probably. as Verstappen now pushing on a proper lap. And he's a couple tenths up on Bearman for the first two sectors, so this is it's a good lap. But can he get on terms with that lap that Russell did in Q1, a 120.0, or go even quicker? That's the question. Through the final corner he goes. To the line, Max Verstappen does a 120.1. So, good pace, but not quite good enough. The others definitely can go quicker. So, they're in the mix, but they're not quite where they want to be on pace at the minute, are Red Bull. As we're looking at a McLaren here. Slowing down right down into the final corner now. Let's go to the final corner. He's already halfway down the pit straight, and it is Oscar Piastri. The man who has led the championship the longest in 2025, but let go of the lead at the most crucial point. But it's not over. He can still reclaim the lead and become world champion. Remember, all that matters is that you are the leader at the very end of the season. Remember Sebastian Vettel in 2010. Vettel never led the championship until the final race, where he won the race, won the championship. So, again, it's about leading when it actually matters most. And if Oscar can produce his best in the final couple races, and something goes wrong for Lando, the door opens for Piastri to take advantage, and he is on an absolutely super lap. Is the Australian. This is going to be a 1 minute 19 lap time right here. As Lawson goes up to third. Albon up to fourth as Piastri comes to the line. And it's a 1:19.6. What a lap time. Take that, Red Bull. As Lando Norris half a second slower and goes behind Verstappen. That is an unbelievable lap by Piastri in that McLaren. As Alonso goes up to fifth. I'll update that in a second. Just had to switch my TV off and back on again because it was about to turn off, which is annoying, but now I'm back. Isaac Hadjar is up to fourth. Alonso is fifth. Gasly has gone up to seventh. What a lap by Gasly, who's having a top session. Again, remember Gasly started on the front row at this Grand Prix 4 years ago. He's very quick around this circuit, without a doubt. As now Leclerc's on another lap, but he's had a right tank slapper into turn. What turn was that? Turn 6. Went to turn in, rear end stepped out, and that would have cost him probably 2-3 tenths. He's on a fresh set of tyres now, and he's had another step out. This car is absolutely awful. He's struggling to keep hold of it as the fog descends upon this racetrack. Leclerc, yeah, he may as well just pit and put on another fresh set of tyres because this is a wasted lap. As Carlos Sainz up to third. Lando Norris has had his lap time deleted. So that puts Lando under a bit of pressure. Leclerc does come to the line, but he doesn't improve, so it is a wasted lap. Antonelli comes to the line and only goes 8th. I hope that's on a used set of tyres, because that is a horrible lap if that is on a fresh set. As, yeah, they're just showing Norris on the entry to turn 10, getting greedy on the entry like Hadjar did yesterday. Yes, Sainz. What a lap. Up to third on a 120.2. As George Russell comes to the line, goes third. Half a second, though, away from Piastri. That lap still has me gobsmacked. He has smashed the rest of the field with that lap time. But what's important is, can he do that again in Q3? It's all great doing it in Q2, but it's about producing it when it matters most. But in the form he's in this weekend, I don't see why he can't do that again. But your current top 10 is Piastri, Verstappen, Russell, Sainz, Hadjar, Hulkenberg, Alonso, Behrman, Gasly, and Antonelli. Lando Norris down in 15th, after having his lap time deleted. Leclerc in 14th. As Max Verstappen improves to a 119.9. He gets under the 120 mark, but he's still 3.5 tenths away from Piastri, which around this track is a lot of lap time, as that's a Haas running through the gravel of Behrman. Here's Leclerc. And yeah, just to replay what happened at turn 6. He went to turn in the rear end, literally tried to violently spin him around, and he caught it well, but that cost him a lot. As Lando Norris is now out on circuit, smartly McLaren have put him out on track where there's no other cars pretty much, to avoid yellow flags. And, well, for Lando, he just needs to make sure he gets into the top 10. Given how quick Piastri was on that lap, he should be able to easily go second at worst. But we'll see whether he can. Here's Oscar Piastri, who's out on track. Doesn't need to be out on track. He's easily through to Q3. As Russell saying, can we prep the clear visor for Q3? It's really dusty out here. Visibility's not great, I have to say. Look, it looks quite foggy in places. I'm sure the drivers can see still mostly fine, but yeah, it looks a bit foggy out there. But in terms of making it into Q3, we've got, so yeah, the top 3, Piastri, Verstappen, and Russell, they're fine. Sainz is fine. Hadjar, I'd say, is fine. And then you've got Hulkenberg, Alonso, Behrman, Gasly, Antonelli. I think the battle to get into Q3 is from Hulkenberg in 6th down to Norris in 15th. The top 5, I think, have done enough. Saying that, I don't actually know what the gap is between Hadjar and Hulkenberg. If it's close, then I'd say Hadjar's involved in that scrap as well. But Carlos Sainz is definitely through. He's on a 120.2. He doesn't have to worry, I think. As Piastri doesn't improve his first sector. As we're in the final 2 minutes of Q2. As Lando Norris does a purple middle sector. So this is right where he needs it to be. Passes the slow Aston Martin of Alonso into the final corner. And Lando Norris goes comfortably to second place, only a couple tenths from Piastri. So Norris is safely through to Q3. Here comes teammate Piastri. Hasn't improved on this lap and fails to improve. That lap was just so good that, struggle to match it. So now the drop zone, with a minute to go, is Antonelli, Lawson, Albon, Bortoletto, and Leclerc. As Alex Albon we're looking at, not improved his first sector. And he's not improved his middle sector either. This is not a good, not a good enough lap from Albon, who has not been good whatsoever in qualifying as of late. He's really dropped off in this area in the last few races, especially compared to Sainz, who looks like he's going to out-qualify him again. Alex Albon comes to the line and, yes, stays in 13th. Albon is out. That's a very disappointing effort from Albon. As Alonso is up to 5th. And Isaac Hadjar, don't think he improved. He's a bit close for him to make it through. As Gasly goes 7th. Antonelli goes 4th. And Behrman has been knocked out in 11th place. As George Russell goes 4th. Lawson only 11th. Can Leclerc get his way through? Yes, he does. He goes up to 9th. Is that going to be enough? It is going to be enough. As here comes Hulkenberg. Stays in 11th. Only 3 thousandths of a second short of matching Hadjar's time. What could Bortoletto do? Goes 14th. So Isaac Hadjar didn't improve his final lap there, but he just by 3 thousandths of a second made it through to Q3. So there you go. That's Q2 over and done with, guys. Let's go through your drivers that have made it through to the final top 10 shootout. Oscar Piastri, Lando Norris, Max Verstappen, George Russell, Kimi Antonelli, Fernando Alonso, Carlos Sainz, Pierre Gasly, what an effort from him, Charles Leclerc, and Isaac Hadjar. And knocked out in the drop zone of Q2, Nico Hulkenberg, Liam Lawson, Oliver Behrman, Gabriel Bortoletto, and Alex Albon. And Q3 will be underway in about 4 or 5 minutes' time. And yeah, after that session, it looks very likely that McLaren are going to take pole position. But does Verstappen or Russell have anything up their sleeve to combat what McLaren are doing? We will have to find out. But yeah, McLaren looking in a very, very strong position. Let me finish the poll in the chat because we've got a clear winner. 670 votes. Thank you guys for voting. And I asked you guys who will take pole position for the Qatar Grand Prix. 47% of you have voted for Max Verstappen. And then 26% for Piastri, 23% for Norris, and 4% for George Russell. It's looking quite a bit less likely that Max is going to get pole here compared to how I felt going into qualifying. But again, you never know. Maybe he'll just magically find, or maybe he was truly hiding the real pace that he's had. But of course, who gets pole position out of the two McLarens is vitally important. Because if it is so difficult to overtake tomorrow, then if Lando Norris is to win the championship, he desperately needs pole. If Oscar Piastri wants to keep the championship going until Abu Dhabi, then of course he desperately needs pole to win the race and hope, of course, that Lando somehow has a drama and loses a load of points. And, well, for Max Verstappen, given the race pace we saw from the Red Bull in the sprint, I think the only way Max wins this race is if he is on pole position. So, pole position absolutely crucial. And that's why this is going to be a very exciting final 12 minutes. As Pierre Gasly very happy there on the radio. And yeah, what an effort from Gasly. That's one of the best drives we've seen from a midfield team, from a midfield runner, I guess you could say, for quite a few races. Really is. Because that Alpine earlier this weekend was absolutely nowhere. So top effort from Gasly, who we've seen it multiple times with him over his career. When he's on it, he is very, very quick. If only he had a better car, he'd be right in there, probably fighting for the top 4 or 5. But yeah, Q3, another, just over 2.5 minutes until Q3 gets underway. I'll sync up the timer at the 11-minute mark. Talking of Ferrari, by the way, Leclerc did well to get through to Q3 because that Ferrari is not good enough really to be in the top 10. He's dragged it in there. Leclerc, though, only got up to 9th. So Leclerc's going to have to do something special if he's going to be in the top 6. Because that Williams and Aston Martin definitely look quicker. And Hadjar has looked quicker in most of qualifying so far as well. So Leclerc, yeah, very likely could end up 8th or 9th at best, which is horrendous for Ferrari. And if they do, I don't see it getting better tomorrow. As Sky F1 is just analysing on the SkyPad why Alex Albon had such a horrible lap. And yeah, the first half of the lap, we didn't quite see it on the broadcast live, but he had lots of snaps of oversteer, which absolutely destroyed his lap. As is a replay of Alonso letting I think Lando Norris through and then immediately catching a slipstream. Smart there by Alonso, who's made it through to Q3, and Alonso will be hoping that he can get in the top 6. I think Alonso, I think he knows that he can't get in the top 5 if the two McLarens, Max and the two Mercedes, all do their best, because those cars are just simply quicker. But he can definitely get 6th. I don't think there's any doubt about that, and that'd be a very good result for Aston Martin, who have not given up hope of finishing 6th in the championship. As 10 more seconds until qualifying gets underway. And there you go. Q3 is underway. Can anyone stop McLaren from taking pole for what would be the 4th race in a row in 2025? McLaren, they did go a spell around late summer, early autumn, where they were really poor in getting pole positions. But yeah, in these last few races, they've been very, very good in qualifying. And especially for Lando Norris, it's been a massive reason why he is in the position he is, leading the championship by 22 points with 2 races to go. Can he produce the goods again in Q3 like he has the last 3 times? He's taken the last 3 pole positions. As there you go, 11 minutes to go in qualifying. As on board, we are now with Max Verstappen. What has he got? Can he take on the McLarens? He's not going to be pushing on this lap. This is a warm-up lap that he's going to be doing to start with. But yeah, can he take on the McLarens? We know that he has got that special something to be able to produce pace from seemingly nowhere. But are the McLarens just a bit too quick? That's what we're going to find out. Is there looks to be some debris there on the circuit on the exit of turn 2 or turn 3. Not quite sure. Don't know if someone's lost a bit of front wing or something. It kind of looked a bit like a front wing or something, but no yellow flag or anything. As Lando Norris is pushing immediately. And he's done a faster first sector than George Russell. But how was he comparing to Piastri? He's gone quicker than Piastri in the first sector. Here comes Lando Norris. Remember, it was a 1:19.6, the fastest lap time in Q2. Norris through the final corner. Pick up a slight slipstream from the car ahead and to the line. A 1:19.4. What a lap time and what a start to Q3 that is. Piastri, though, is still a purple middle sector. It's going to be very close on this first attempt at pole position. Through the final couple corners, Oscar comes. As Isaac Hadjar goes second on a 1:20.0. Very strong lap from Hadjar. As Piastri goes second, 0.03 of a second slower. So advantage Norris going into the final laps. Verstappen now starts his first run at pole. He's a 10th off in the first sector. As Gasly goes 4th. Yeah, that time from Hadjar, that's going to put him right in the mix for a 6th or a 7th. Very good lap from Hadjar. I think it's actually quicker than pole from yesterday in sprint qualifying. That's how quick it is. As Verstappen through these final high-speed corners. This final sector might be the best final sector in Formula 1. As Max Verstappen through the final corner. DRS open. It's not going to be pole. It's 3rd, but he's 4.5 tenths off the pace. He just cannot get anywhere near those McLarens. As here comes George Russell through the final corner. He also is not getting close to the McLarens. He goes 3rd. 3.5 tenths off Norris, but still, that is miles away from where they want to be. Making Hadjar's lap look even better. Hadjar's only a 10.5 slower than Verstappen. As here comes Antonelli to the line. Goes 6th behind Hadjar. As Alonso goes 7th. And Sainz is in 8th and Leclerc's in the pit. So I'm assuming Leclerc has only got one set of tyres left. Nope, he made a mistake. Into the penultimate corner. And yet, once again, did a 720. Massive spin. And that is once again what I've said earlier in this stream. In the high-speed corners, the rear end of that Ferrari is not able to hang on like the others are. It's really poor. As Sainz has been noted for leaving the pits in an unsafe condition. Did he leave with something on his car? Oh, they've left some sort of... There's a sticker from the floor of the garage that was left on his tyres. And that is the debris that I was talking about, the exit at turn 3. So that's poor from Williams. They're going to get a fine for that. Yeah, that's not good. But thankfully for Williams, they can get Sainz back in, get him on another set of tyres. Oh, the session has been red flagged. And that will be to clear that piece of plastic from the track. Doesn't do anything, red flagging the session in terms of hurting anyone, because we're halfway through Q3. We've got 5.5 minutes left in qualifying, so everyone will get a final run. As the red flags have gone in, so I'm assuming that someone, hopefully there's a marshal there, not far away, and they'll just quickly run onto the track, grab the offending piece and remove it. As all the teams just getting their cars prepared. It's now they put a yellow flag out, so I'm assuming someone is now on the track trying to retrieve. And hopefully be got rid of, and hopefully we'll be back underway in a couple minutes. But even if the session gets underway in a couple minutes, doesn't mean anything's going to happen, because all these teams are waiting until the final run, quite simply. So they'll be sat in the pits probably until 4 minutes to go or so before they actually decide to go out there for the final qualifying run. But as it stands, and Q3 will resume in 3 minutes' time, or 2.5 minutes' time. So not long now to wait until we're back underway. But yeah, as it stands, Lando Norris on pole, Piastri second, Russell third, Verstappen fourth, Hadjar fifth. What a lap Hadjar has done there. And if he can find further improvement, you never know, could he end up getting fourth if Verstappen fails to improve. Antonelli sixth, Alonso seventh, Sainz eighth, Gasly ninth, Leclerc 10th. Leclerc has not done a lap time. But yeah, as it stands, of course, there's now a marshal running out to grab a piece of plastic that was on Carlos's tyre. This is the perfect scenario for the championship leader, Lando Norris. If he can hold pole position until the end of this session, and then obviously get away tomorrow in pole and hold the lead, who is going to stop him from winning his first world championship? As another 30 seconds or so, and we will be back underway. As Nib saying, Everton are 4-0 down, home to Newcastle. That is, a remarkable result. And now it's at 4-1 now, but yeah, incredible that Newcastle have gone and done that, considering Newcastle have been not that good this season. But there you go. As the session is only a few seconds away from resuming, as all the teams patiently wait. And 10 more seconds until the session restart. And there you go. The light at the end of the pit lane is green, meaning that if anyone wants to come out, they can. But like I said, they're probably going to wait another 90 seconds or so before they come out, because they want to time it right. Some drivers obviously need a warm-up lap. I think like Verstappen and Russell. The McLarens, though, clearly don't need a warm-up lap. And there you go. 5 minutes to go in qualifying. Can the championship leader take the pole position that will pretty much win him the championship tomorrow? Or will there be a dramatic turnaround? Anything could happen in these final few minutes, and it could be championship defining. As I'm expecting Red Bull to be releasing Max Verstappen in the next half a minute, given that he needs to do a warm-up lap before he does his proper lap. As they've just shown the qualifying head-to-head, 11 apiece. Been the closest fight in qualifying this season. As some Russell fans and Verstappen fans they just showed in the grandstands. 4 minutes to go, still no one on track. And there you go. The teams now are going for it as Ferrari are about to release Charles Leclerc. Surely Leclerc can get a decent position here. 10th would be a disaster for the Ferrari team. As out comes the McLarens, Alonso, Hadjar. Let's see what they can all do. As Lando Norris is the first on track. Or no, second on track. Russell was first on track, but Norris going first. Piastri has second dibs. As Antonelli still being held in the garage. See what he can do. Verstappen still being held in the garage, interestingly. So a Red Bull not going to go for a warm-up lap. We'll see. I don't think they've got the time to do a warm-up lap, given that it's a 1 minute 19 lap. As we're looking at George Russell, who has always been super quick here. He was on the front row of the grid here for 2023. And then last year, took pole. The races, though, have always gone disastrously for Russell. Hasn't managed to be on the podium yet here in Qatar, despite him being very quick around the circuit itself. And let's see what Russell has. Does he have anything left in the tank to take on the McLarens and take pole? Well, he's not going to go for it just yet. He's very slowly crossing the line. Still another minute and 45 to go. So he'll, if he does a warm-up lap, he should still make the line. Lando Norris is not going for a warm-up lap. He's going for it. Through turn 1, kissing the apex, into turn 2. All front end wandering a bit. Wasn't great. As Lando Norris has backed off. So he is going to go for another attempt in a minute or so. Clearly didn't feel the front tyres were there, ready. As here comes Charles Leclerc through turn 7. This is Leclerc's final run in qualifying. Can he somehow drag this car into a somewhat decent position, given how slow it is? As Piastri has started his final attempt at pole in the desert. And he's done a purple first sector. 0.003 of a second up on Norris. Leclerc through the final corner. Or now into the final corner. He went through the penultimate corner just then. Max Verstappen, purple first sector. Half a tenth up on Norris. As Leclerc only 8th. That is awful. And I'll be surprised if he stays there. He's only a couple tenths ahead of Sainz and Gasly. Piastri, purple middle sector. What will Verstappen do for the middle sector? As into the final couple corners, the checkered flag has fallen. Max is 300ths off as Norris has not got to the flag in time. And Piastri takes pole by a 10th of a second. But does he keep it? Because here comes Max Verstappen into the final corner as Gasly goes 8th ahead of Leclerc. Verstappen to the line. No, it's only 3rd, quarter of a second off. Here is Antonelli as Hadjar has pitted. So he clearly didn't make it round in time. Antonelli goes 5th. Best he could do, really, only just behind Russell, and Russell has backed off. Has Russell backed off? No, he hasn't. He just... Oh, no, it looked like he was going slow. As Carlos Sainz up to 7th. As Russell through the final couple corners. Can he get at least ahead of Verstappen? Through the final corner. George Russell to the line. No, it's only 4th. Disappointing for Mercedes. 4th and 5th. They definitely could have done better than that. But a twist in the tail. Oscar Piastri takes pole. Lando Norris, in the end, threw away the chance to take pole. Made a little mistake on the lap. But he was going to go for it. Backed off, but didn't make it to the line in time. So Oscar Piastri takes advantage, takes pole. And Piastri, at least this weekend, is doing the most he can to take this championship down to the final race. Norris, though, still in 2nd, so if he gets a better start off the line tomorrow, can still take the lead and go for the win. Verstappen 3rd. Max is going to have to pull off some incredible drive tomorrow to keep the championship alive for himself. Russell 4th, Antonelli 5th. Isaac Hadjar 6th. What a effort from Hadjar once again. Super qualifying. Carlos Sainz 7th. Great from him. Alonso 8th. He'll be a bit disappointed, Alonso. He didn't improve at the end there. Gasly 9th. What a qualifying for him. Charles Leclerc only 10th. Ferrari in the shitter. Hulkenberg 11th. Lawson 12th. Behrman 13th, Bortoletto 14th, Albon 15th, Tsunoda 16th, Ocon 17th, Hamilton 18th, Stroll 19th, the Colapinto 20th. That is your field for tomorrow's Qatar Grand Prix. As Nib saying Leclerc had no new soft tyres. Even if he did, I don't think he would have ended up being a lot better, to be honest. But let me just ask you guys, who is your driver of the day for qualifying in Qatar? And the options for driver of the day will be Oscar Piastri, Isaac Hadjar, Carlos Sainz, and Pierre Gasly. Driver of the day for me is Pierre Gasly. For him to qualify 9th is, yeah, spectacular. In a car that looks so bad up until qualifying. So well done to Pierre Gasly. Once again on it. He's been really on it, I must say, in these last couple races. Remember in Brazil, he was in the top 10 consistently. And maybe Alpine will score a couple more points before the season is over. We will find out tomorrow. Make sure, guys, to join us tomorrow live 2 hours before lights out at 2 p.m. UK time for the Qatar Grand Prix race watch-along, where we'll find out whether the championship will either finish tomorrow or go down to the final race in Abu Dhabi. As it stands, if the race finishes the way the grid is, the championship lead would go down to 15 points in Lando Norris's favour. Verstappen would be out of the championship fight, so it would be just between the two McLaren drivers for that final race. But if Lando can swap around with Piastri, then Lando will win the championship tomorrow. Remember, if Lando Norris wins tomorrow, he is champion. regardless of what the others do, which is why the start of the race tomorrow is absolutely crucial in, determining whether Lando can win the championship tomorrow or not. If Piastri gets away first and Norris in second, unless Lando has a massive pace advantage, I just don't see why Norris would be able to overtake Piastri on track unless something majorly goes wrong for Oscar. Most people voting for Piastri. I'll keep the poll running for another couple minutes or so. Crystal saying Gasly driver of the day. Drew Blank Music, good to see you, says hopefully we'll see Hadjar with Red Bull next season. Yeah. With the performances he's put in, I don't see why you would say no to putting Hadjar in that car. I know there is, a curse at this point with the second Red Bull car, but next year is a new set of regulations. Maybe that, that complete difference in car feeling might resolve itself to a degree next season. So, why not try him out, see what happens? I mean, he clearly deserves, if there's anyone who deserves to be in the Red Bull next season, out of Hadjar, Tsunoda, and Lawson, it's Hadjar. He's been Rookie of the Year. He's been one of the top 10 best drivers this season on the grid, period. He deserves it. Looney Classics asking, do you think, guys, AI will be designing future F1 cars? I think it probably is already. Not entirely, but I think they are probably already using AI to design or help with certain things. Whether it'll be like fully designing cars, I don't know enough about the subject to say. But yeah, AI is growing with everything. I love this comment from Crystal. Virgin 2010 F1 car used CFD. Was it quick? I'll let you decide. Oh, God. They were the days. Those were the days. There's only been about 25 votes on the poll, but there's a pretty clear winner. 24 votes on the driver of the day vote for qualifying, and 79% of that vote gone for Oscar Piastri. So clearly you guys think Piastri is driver of the day. 13% for Gasly, 8% for Hadjar, 0% for Carlos Sainz. Still a good effort from Sainz, but yeah, maybe could have been a slight bit better. But thank you guys for coming along for this qualifying watch along. And yeah, like I said, make sure to join us tomorrow, 2 p.m. UK time, for the race watch along. See just what goes down. And like I said, whether the championship is won tomorrow or whether it goes down to the final race next weekend in Abu Dhabi, we will find out tomorrow. So make sure to join us for that. Thank you guys for coming along for this stream. Before you go, make sure to subscribe if you are new and smash the like button if you haven't already. And yeah, make sure to join us tomorrow for what will hopefully be an exciting enough Qatar Grand Prix. The sprint didn't fill us with a lot of hope, but you never know. Sometimes, if you look at a lot of races where championships have been won, that those particular races ended up being pretty mental. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, it's a mandatory 2-stop race. Maybe we'll get some drama with the tyres. Who knows? But make sure to join us tomorrow for that. Until tomorrow, and until next time in general, it has been me, Chazza HD. Goodbye.